obviously Arsenal had a good weekend again. I don't necessarily think we need to break down their game in particular. They look top class, and I put a video out yesterday. I'm like, they look top class, but are City actually going to slip up? It doesn't look like it. It almost looks as though both teams might win all their remaining games, and Arsenal are going to kind of go through potentially what Liverpool did on a couple of occasions, just being brilliant, but just not quite good enough to stop this phenomenal Manchester City team. But I wanted to ask a question about two players. I saw this stat that got pushed out, and I'm sad that Igal's gone, but we'll have to. Me and I'll be the Arsenal rep if you want, and everyone thinks I'm an Arsenal fan anyway. But
sad, speak for yourself. Me and Kate are celebrating.
Okay. Yeah, I love it, Gal. It says here, Declan Rice this season has more goal contributions, more big chances created, more interceptions, more blocks, more tackles won, more clearances than Rodri in the Premier League. I'm going to be careful how I word this. Which of the two has had the better season, in your opinion, Henry?
That's actually false, by the way. Rodri's got more assists in the league and more goals. If you actually look at the Premier League official website.
It's because that was released before we played Wolves. So Henry.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm going to get TNT Sports posted that. It's not my...
Yeah, it was right at the time, but Henry's correct. Since the Wolves game, I think
when you look at Declan Rice, when Partey has played the last number of games, Rodri, we all know, is the glue of Manchester City. I personally think is the most important player. I would have him over any other defensive player in world football. I think he's the closest thing the Spanish national team will see to a Busquets-esque player. I think Busquets is better personally, but Declan Rice is playing in a lot more advanced role. So naturally he's going to get more GA than Rodri. But overall, as a season and the last few, I guess you can only really judge it this season. He's been at Arsenal. I do think, with that all being said, that Rice has had the better season. I don't think he's the better footballer, because I think with Arsenal last year, we're in a title race, regardless of Declan Rice was there. If you take Rodri out of this City team, you're ripping out a lot of their spine there. I don't know if Nobbins and you guys would agree, but I think Rice has had the better season. Overall, I'm taking Rodri. I don't know what you guys think. If you look at Rodri, though, he had a massive goal against Bayern Munich away a few years ago. You know, he scored the Champions League final goal. I remember a few years ago at the Emirates, City were awful that game. Who picks up the goal? Rodri jumping in right in front of the City fans. He's a big game player, but this season for me, I think Rice has been better. I think he's, in terms of the 100 million signings we've seen, the Nunes 100 million euros, the Antony 100 million euros, the Grealish, Rice has kind of gone in and went, this is value for money. I don't know what you guys think, but that's me. I think Rice had the better season. Rodri's a better player.
I think that's fair. I personally don't agree, but I think that's definitely fair. For me, I think it's close. I think that's fine between the two. I just look at Rodri and what he's done this season, and the impossible task he's been given. In terms of, we didn't replace Gundogan, so Pep's asked Rodri to be Rodri and Gundogan at times, which is mad. He has taken on this sort of like all-encompassing role, which he hasn't been able to do at times, to be fair. Like, I think of Stamford Bridge, he can't do it all on his own. I just think that, I agree with you, Henry. Rodri is our most important player. I'd
argue, Nobbins, he's the most important player for any team in the league in terms of the way they play.
Potentially, yes. I think that's fair. It's pretty basic analysis, but the only game City have lost this season, Rodri hasn't featured in. For example, Rodri's still on that mental run of like 70 to 71 games without a loss, something mental like that. I don't think that's necessarily a wrong answer. I'd personally just edge it more towards Rodri in terms of that. Rice has been fantastic, by the way, but Rice has also, again, I agree with Henry, that there have been games this season where he's basically played as an out-and-out 8, with one Partey or Jorginho being the proper 6 or DM. But I think Rice has been Arsenal's best player this season, definitely.
How do you see it, Kate?
I think when you look at Rice, the difference he's made to Arsenal, I think he was their missing piece. He's changed the way they look this season. He's been immense, better than I thought he would be. But I just think Rodri is probably one of the best players in the world. I think he's phenomenal. If I could pick any player to come to Spurs, it would be Rodri. I just think he's a different gravy. But I can understand where the argument is because, like I say, he's transformed Arsenal for me, Declan Rice, and some of his performances have been incredible. But yeah, for me, I will always choose Rodri because I just think he's different gravy. He's such a brilliant player.
You could probably play them together.
Well,
We wanted to. We wanted
Pep
Rice.
wanted to, didn't he?
Blimey.
So it's. Do you know what? I love the fact that listening to three opinions so far, we haven't had anyone try and make the other one sound crap, which is beautiful because I think in these conversations too often you'll get one group that will try and make the other player sound overrated or they're carried by their team. I think what goes against Rodri in this debate about this season is that I think we've become sometimes, I'm going to get the saying wrong, is it familiarity breeds contempt? And I almost, maybe that isn't the right saying, but that's what popped into my head around, we're so familiar now with Rodri, maybe we don't recognize how good he is. You almost forget how good he is because it's become the norm. And I don't think anything should be taken away from him. He is absolutely tremendous at everything as a midfield player. Defensively, on the attack, he can carry the ball. There isn't an element, there isn't a skill set for a midfielder that he doesn't have, in my opinion, that's necessary for his role. Declan Rice, look, I think you think the £100 million price tag needs to be spoke about more in the sense of the way he's handled it and gone up a level himself. If you actually look through the record books of Premier League clubs that have spent £80 million or more on players, the lion's share are underwhelmed, done okay, right through to flopped. Declan Rice is one of the only ones who stands out as a player. If we could drop the money a little bit and go to 75 million, Van Dijk, of course, goes into that category. But he's come in, he's made Arsenal better. He has improved and gone to another level. And I'm quite proud of him because I remember talking about him to Man United fans for years. Don't want him, overrated, English hype. And I don't like that kind of... I don't think any footballer should ever be judged on their passport, no matter, you know, where they're from around the world. But he was played down. It was almost laughed at and scoffed at that he would be this good a player. And I think he's gone into Arsenal and he's made them a top team now. Yes, there's still room for them to grow, and I still think they need to go and get more Declan Rices in different positions. I would probably agree with Henry, where if I was going to pick between the two, I would probably go with Rice this season, having handled that £100+ million price tag and turning down Man City, because that comes with its own sort of pressure. But I look at the two of them, and as a Man United fan whose midfield is weak,
Same as us.
I look at both of them and just think to myself, wow, what tremendous players they both are. So I saw the tweet from TNT Sport, and I saw a lot of the comments underneath and just thought, oh, why is everybody so salty? Why slag Rice off? Why slag Rodri off? And I'm so glad, and I didn't brief you guys, we were going to talk about it, but I'm quite glad to see everybody is giving an opinion, but being very fair.
On this quickly, if you look at the €100 million signings, I think, to my knowledge, out of the 15 or 14 signings that have been over 100 million in their first season, I don't think anyone's had a bigger impact than Declan Rice. You look at the Ousmane Dembele's, the Coutinho's, the Eden Hazard at Madrid, you know, the Darwin Núñez was €100 million, Anthony.
Well, let's go through him here, Henry. Sorry to stop you. This is the Premier League's most expensive transfers.
You look throughout Europe as well, because there's a lot in La Liga.
If we just stick to the Premier League for a minute, sorry, because not everyone's watched it. Jadon Sancho, 85 million. Harry Maguire, 87. This is in euros, by the way. Guardiola, 90 million. Anthony, 95 million.
Well.
Pogba, 105 million. Lukaku, 113 million. That was to Chelsea. Caicedo, 116 million. Declan Rice, 116. Jack Grealish, 117. And Enzo Fernandez at 121 million euros. That's coming from the website Statistica. So you actually look at all those signings. Guardiola's done well, but outside of that, Grealish did well, I would say, but
very well.
The rest of them, compared to what Declan Rice has done, it doesn't. And I think that element, like a lot of times when people do signing of the season, they do it pound for pound and they get a guy that's done really well at 20 million or really well at 30 million. I almost feel like this season, you have to factor in the pressure that comes with that price tag and how well he's delivered against it. And, you know, to even be spoken about and be close to Rodri in itself is a testament. But I agree with Henry. Rodri is the better player overall, but I think Rice this season deserves a nod slightly.
That could change though. If Rodri then has two absolute worldies, scores the winner at the Tottenham Stadium, scores the winner at Fulham, all of a sudden we're now going, hang on. Like that. If we're looking
Equally,
at judgment,
if he gets bossed by Manu in the FA Cup final, do you know what I mean?
Let's be
we need Don here telling us that Enzo is the best £100 million signing.
You know, that's what's funny about the Enzo conversation. I understand that Arsenal are a better team. Okay, I totally get that. But when I look at the Enzo situation, and by the way, how good Chelsea have looked in their last few games without him, I'm not trying to, I know correlation and causation are not always the same thing, but sometimes I feel, and you do get this wrong, but when you sign players for a lot of money, quite often you see in a handful of games, you're like, yeah, this person's good, you know. Normally you can tell pretty early. 18 months in, when someone's still looking average, I mean, how many players have turned it around after 18 months of not really delivering? Genuine question. I don't know how many. By the way, not at 18, at 22, at 23, 24. Maybe I'm being disrespectful. I don't know, but just me. Staffy, what's your take on it, mate?
Interesting debate. What do you mean? Oh no. What do you think I'm gonna say? I mean, either way, I'm probably gonna lose the conversation anyway.
You're gonna side with me, Staffy. That's what you're gonna do.
Most likely. I just think it's a weird comparison because once again, I feel like we keep comparing Rice to sixes, and he's not a six. I mean, Henry said it perfectly. He does play more advanced up the pitch. So I don't know why we keep comparing him to number 6 positions. Because Rodri, what he does on the ball is completely different to what Rice does on the ball. I mean, for starters, Rodri averages about 120 touches per game, whereas Rice has like almost 80. So it could just show you how much more time does Rodri spend on the ball than Rice. And rightfully so, because like Rice isn't that conductor anyways. He has better players in that midfield to probably move the ball around, whether it's Jorginho or Partey playing, or when Odegaard drops a little bit deeper and picks up the ball. But listen, Rice has been amazing this season. 100% I agree with everything what you guys said. He's been integral for them. He changed a lot for them this season. He's been a perfect replacement for Xhaka because number one, he replaced the GA. I forgot how many goals and assists he said he had, Terry, but it's somewhere between. Xhaka had 14 last season, I believe. And
yeah, I think he's on 16 in totality goals.
Yeah, so it's about the same.
Nine assists, 7 goals, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's slightly above. So he replaced the goals and actually added a little bit more. And just the legs that he's added in that midfield, the physicality that he's added in that midfield, he's been amazing for them. And the leadership, that's something that you kind of can't quantify in numbers. It's more of an intangible. But he's added that as well. So he's been amazing for them. But I think Rodri is superior as a footballer. What Rodri does, I think Rodri is the best player in the world. And I love how the chat's saying I'm waffling. I'm basically repeating everything you guys said, but because I said it, I'm waffling. I just have these guys on strings.
You're a Knicks fan.
It is what it is, bro. It's just like
it's an interesting. Listen, I appreciate how you see football. I get that they may not be the same type of player. I tend to look at it based on heat maps a lot of the time. In terms of, I know people say a 6 or an 8. I look at where players are when they touch the ball, and Rodri's heat map is a deeper red because he touches the ball more because the way City play football. But when you look at the area of the pitch that they both touch the ball in, they're really similar to each other. It's like with Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes. Although they play different positions in terms of the graphics on the screen, when you look at their heat maps, it's hard to tell who's who because the areas of the pitch they pick the ball up and they pass the ball from and everything else, it's very similar. So I think that's why it can be looked at in those ways. We have some super chats here. First one says, remember people saying Ndidi over Rice, Terry?
Whoever said that.
What I will say is, indeed, if you go back, say, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of people were raving about the trajectory of Ndidi. He just stopped getting better. But what's also funny, I did see someone tweet this. I remember about 18 months ago being told that Zakaria and somebody else, I forget the name now, were light years ahead of Declan Rice. Samari, that was the one. Basuma, even the stuff like I got my prediction about Basuma at Spurs has been wrong. I thought he was gonna be amazing for you all. But sometimes, again, I don't want to be a dig at Spurs, but I look at Maddison similarly at the moment. Maybe there's a reason why it was Spurs out of all of the top 6 teams that signed Basuma and Maddison, and the other top clubs and other top European clubs didn't want him. I'm not having a dig.
They're not playing in balanced midfields though. Well, when Maddison was at Leicester, you had Ndidi, Tielemans, and Maddison. With us, Terry, we're all over.
Hang on a minute. Sorry, is that Don or is that Don or is that?
I'm not even taking a dig. Hang on, I'm not Don. Right, I'm not going to tell you Madueke's a 1v1 demon because he had a couple of good games. Maddison does not if you look how deep he's coming to get the ball, the same Harry Kane did the exact same thing because there's no creativity in our squad. So if you put Maddison in if you put Maddison in that 10 role at the Chelsea team, he would cook because there's balance there. With us, we've got too many similar profiles. Look at our midfield yesterday. Who's playing in the 10 out of Sarr, Bissouma, and Bentancur? Who's playing in the 8?
Hasn't Maddison been dropped because he's been so poor?
Yes, and that's why you can also critique him. I don't think he's been. I don't think he's been good at all since.
I think he's at Spurs because he's Spurs level.
Would you take him at United?
No.
I wanted at some point.
Not now that I've seen him at Spurs. Definitely. I probably would have done. That's what I'm saying. I said about Basuma. I said before I'd take Basuma at Man United. I wouldn't take him now. I think he's gone up a level. And
so you don't think of a better coach at United?
No. So I'll tell you this. I think you've got a good coach at your club. I think this is what's happened to Maddison so far this season. When you first started playing Ange Ball, teams are open and attacking against you as well because they didn't know what to expect. And he had room and space to exploit like when he plays for Leicester because teams don't sit back against Leicester. Now teams are sitting deeper against you. He's got no space. And it's why it works the same for defenders and attackers. We know KDB is the best attacking midfielder that Europe's had for many years because he's always up against low blocks and he still scores, still finds the space, still creates. We know how good the defender Van Dijk is as a defender because all he's defending is one-on-one while he's exposed because they push such a high line. You can have some centre-backs who have great stats in a low block. Very different when you're defending near your halfway line. And same for attackers. It's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to create good numbers when you're up against a team that are pushing up and attacking in their space. You suddenly play against a team with 10 men behind the ball, 11 men behind the ball. It's a different kettle of fish. It really is for me. And that's not a dig. Maddison might improve next year. Basuma especially, I think he's proven that he ain't the elite level we all thought he might be. I think he's had his chance.
It's our midfield in general. Since March, none of our midfielders have been good. They've had 30 minutes good here, and we're changing it too much. One week it's Højbjerg and Bentancur, the next minute it's Sarr and Bissouma.